Welcome back to YellowCard Vanguard. I'm your host Toku from It's Toku TV on Twitch. It has been a long while and Clan Collection 5 and 6 have already been out for quite some time, but I figured this is going to be a mainstay of the channel, so I've taken some time out of my failing job search to give you, the viewers, what you want. My based, red-pilled, and Vikachad takes on the new cards and supports for Clan Collections 5 and 6. Once again, we need to preface the video as well as the rest of the series by letting you know that these lists are made at face value using my skills of card evaluation. They will need playtesting to fine-tune, but I hope they will serve as a good reference point for filthy net deckers to piggyback off of. Welcome back to Clan Collection Cores. The more things change, the more things stay the same. Ripples are back, and if you were a player of old or attempting to enjoy premium at the moment, you probably already recognize these cards to your chagrin. The original deck that dished out early game pressure is back in Clan Collection 5-6 to do similar things again. Introducing one of the hottest seamen to spray his ocean spray over your deck, Thundering Ripple, Genovius. Once per turn, Soul Blast 1 and Superior call a card from top 5, and when this unit attacks and we don't have any standing front row units, we can counterblast 1 and stand a rear guard. Furthermore, if we are at 4 or more damage, we can stand all of our rear guards instead. Then, if Pavroth is in Soul, all units stood gain 5k for the turn. Very good. Very, very good. Ever since Aquaforce got Pursuit Assault out of the prison, we've been eating well. And it's funny to see, actually, that Ripples doesn't need Pursuit, at least in the V format. A very simple Soul Blast 1 to Superior Call from top 5 each turn is a great way to maintain board, and Aquaforce isn't short of strong attackers. The Limit Break 4 ability is also very strong. A full board restand with a full board 5k buff can close out games if your opponent's hand isn't equipped to handle all of the pokes. The new Grade 2 is Rising Ripple Pavroth. When it attacks from van or rear, you can Soul Blast 1 to check top 7 and add up to 1 Genovius to hand. Then, if he's on the rearguard circle, you can push him into Soul. And once per turn on the rearguard circle when stood by an effect, gains 5k. Pavroth is fantastic in context of what this deck looks to do. First effect being able to A, not only find your first and extra copies of Genovius, but B, being able to pop itself into Soul, regardless if you find it, to ensure you have it in Soul for Genovius' field buff. Finally, the Grade 1, Silent Ripple Soterio. When placed on the Vanguard circle, check top 7 for Pavroth or Genovius and add up to 1 to hand. Very simple. And when stood by an effect, once per turn, gain 5k. Not amazing, nothing to really chimp out for, but it's a good consistency booster to find our centerpieces. If Soterio acted on the rearguard circle, it would probably be the tipping force to make Ripples the go-to in the V premium format. Let's look into the list first and talk about the game plan afterward. In our Grade 3 lineup, obviously 4 copies of Genovius. God forbid we're forced to ride into anything else. We also run 2 copies of Riptide Dragon. You'll notice we run 4 copies of Wheel Assault as a way to maybe cheat Riptide Dragon out early and start abusing our opponents and destabilizing them. It is important to know that Riptide, though being very strong as an attacker, you do need to be able to have 3 attacks before you go into it, so don't get too lost in the sauce and find that you're unable to attack with it before attacking with Genovius. We also run a singleton copy of Bleb Bomber Dragon, just a surefire way to ensure your opponent has no way of surviving that final turn. Coupled with how many times we attack per turn, being able to negate the defensive trigger on the 5 or the 6 damage ensures that all future attacks should be able to hit unless they get another defensive. In our Grade 2 lineup, we run 4 copies of Pavroth as our engine piece, 4 copies of Coral Assault as a very big attacker. Getting to attack with Coral Assault twice per turn equals to a 30k buff. That's usually a free point of damage. Sometimes it may even be worth it if your hand is healthy enough to keep your Coral Assaults on board for the kill next turn. And 4 copies of Terrific Coil Dragon. It shares the ability with the Grade 1 and 2 Ripples to gain 5k when stood by an ability, so it itself is an honorary Ripple unit. It also helps increase our attack count of the turn to make sure Riptide on the Grade 3 turn is able to attack. Finally, 3 copies of Kelpie Rider Dennis. Because Genovius requires your front row to be rested before you are able to get a restand, sometimes you end up with a standing Riptide Dragon, in which case you are able to rest Riptide for Dennis's cost, get a free card off the top, and proceed into the battle phase there. Also a very strong early game piece to start getting some free pluses to board. Finally, our Grade 1 line. 4 copies of Soterio for our engine, as well as 4 copies of Wheel Assault. Wheel Assault is a really good card to ride to be able to cheat strong cards out early, but Wheel Assault can also cheat out extra attacks, and thanks to Genovia's 5k buff, even our grade 0s can poke for a 5k guard after pushing them onto that axle. We run 3 copies of Nerissa as well. Though we won't get a lot of value out of her first effect besides Dennis, the deck eats through a lot of soul due to Genovia's and Terrific Coil, so having Nerissa to refund soul at the end of turn and turn 0 effective shield in the back row into shield in hand helps sustenance. Finally, as for our trigger lineup, though this deck does a full board restand, I opted for crits over fronts. The reason for this is because we'll spend more of our game at less than 4 damage if our opponent is smart. This is where crits gain more value since we can put the crit onto the one unit that got restood. We also run the Heal Guardians to pop ourselves for a damage if we've been denied, and it's also an attacker. Finally, I think our deck appreciates Draw Sentinels to have an extra source of draw outside of Coral and Nerissa. The game is completely different when we have 1 Axel marker and 2 Axel markers, so we're hoping that that extra bit of draw power helps find our second copy of Genovia's faster. Premium alert. What? You mean to tell me that Ripples is making a Ripple in the premium format? However could that be? Odysseus? You're telling me that we release Ripple units at the same time that Odysseus is unrestricted? There's no way that we would be so blind to do that to a format, would we? In any case, Odysseus being able to ride all copies of Genovius in one grade 3 turn gives us a disturbing amount of advantage. Being able to pop our rearguard Tavis in and out of soul to continuously be able to retire units on the opponent's board, getting rid of Honolly, then we also have access to Militarius for the Legion to send triggers back to deck. Yeah, order strides. The more things change, the more things stay the same. Imagine unironically designing or printing these cards with the exact same name as the old Ripples while Odysseus is back at 4. As for other options we can run in the V Premium variant of the deck, I like the idea of running Tyrannite Valeria as extra copies of Coral Assault that don't go to soul for the refund. It's pretty easy to hit the 4th battle and up of the turn, so Valeria should always be attacking at 90k minimum. You can also play more laissez-faire and soak early game damage to hit Limit Break 4 faster and try to one-shot your opponent that way, thus leaning you into front triggers over crit triggers. Of course, if you find that one counterblasted turn is too much counterblast, you can run Penguin Soldiers as well, which can actually attack before being retired to get max value in this deck. And I guess some finishing statements. I think the speed of Premium is what makes Genovius' ride turn so good, where the Axel marker acceleration also accelerates Pursuit Assault's power. The lack of rewrite to make Pursuit Assault super large in here in the V Premium format is why we've omitted him this time around. Being restricted to Limit Break 4 to get the full board restand is also rough to say the least, and a lot of decks can already blow you out from 2 to 6, let alone 3 to 6. For those reasons, I think Tavas is still the go-to for Aquaforce in V Premium, but Ripples is a close second with its heavy in-archetype advantage engine. In any case, that's it from me for this episode of Clan Collection Cores. Be sure to subscribe to the channel for more content like this and leave a comment down below because every little bit helps. This has been Toku from YellowCard Vanguard. Toku out.